Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Well, our Sedra is Noah, Genesis 6:1 and following, and the text contains the very well-known story of Noah, the ark, the flood, and the aftermath. An outstanding professor, a brilliant teacher at the Hebrew College in Jerusalem, Dr. Dahlia Marx, published this week in the Hebrew Press a fascinating exploration of this foundational story. It seems that ancient tales still retain the capacity to enrich and even to ennoble our lives. Let's let Professor Marx teach us. When the flood struck, Noah and his family entered the ark, with the animals, but they entered the ark. They entered the ark, however, with great ambivalence. They really didn't believe that such a predicted disaster could impact upon their world, and if it did, then they wanted the ark to become their permanent home. You see, it's not unusual for human beings to deny what was really before their eyes. Noah's family expected that no matter what would happen, the ark would protect them. But there was something very unusual about the blueprints for that ark. Noah was to build a tzohar, a window in the ark's roof, a window that would look out onto the impact of the storm. When the clouds lifted and the rainbow appeared, it was obvious that the world that Noah had known effectively disappeared. What was left was very, very new, excuse me, and very, very frightening. No one, therefore, wanted to leave the security of the ark. No one wanted to confront that new reality. No one wanted to do anything but to sit on that ship's deck and just wait for whatever would come next. Life is too complicated. Let's just stay put. So God called out in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis. God calls out, Tsei min hateva. Leave the ark. Colloquially, get out of here. Set foot on the dry land, no matter how frightening it appeared. You have work to do. A new covenant has to be created. A new relationship between God and humanity has to be forged that would set clear limits on human behavior. And that would therefore bar murder, cruelty, injustice. Noah, family, get out of the ark. There is work to be done. There is a disaster that will become the raw material for a new era, a new set of expectations. It's not going to be good enough to sit on the floor of that ark and look through the tzohar and see what's outside. What is it you want, Noah? What do you hope for? What do you need to replace that which was destroyed so that you can end up with something that is new and compellingly attractive? What is it that you desire so much that you will be driven to bring that better world into being? So tsei min hateva, get out of the ark. Even as images of that horrendous storm still dominate your dreams, what's the best outcome you can imagine? And get ready to pursue a new vision of reality. Dr. Marx then recalls a poem written by Sinai, approximately 6th century author of worship texts, in which God calls upon Noah to move the world from darkness to light, from narrowness to a broad expanse, from fear to confidence, from death to rebirth, from curse to blessing, from anger to tranquility. Sinai acknowledges that despair can be crushing and fear can be crippling and hesitation and addiction. If Noah and his family had never left that ark, humanity would have been still boring. Do you remember that when the Israelites built a golden calf and declared, "This is your God," Moses, who was still atop Mount Sinai, received the following message from God: Lech red, go down, get out of here. Get down from this mountain, bad things are happening. You might find, Moses, that your current stay atop Sinai is something that felt like, a close proximity to God, an experience you would never want to abandon. But Moses, Lech red, get down. You have a job to do. And do you remember when God issues a command to the Israelites to break camp at the foot of Mount Sinai and to begin the march to the promised land? Hanging out at the mountain of revelation was surely a transcendent experience. But the mission of God's people required that they get to work teaching Torah to the world. Get out of the ark, you Israelites. Get down from the mountain. Start moving toward the land of promise. The rabbis famously taught, Lo ha-midrash hu ha'ikar ella ha-ma'aseh. We might paraphrase that aphorism as, study is great and very important, but when push comes to shove, action is what counts. Sitting on that ark and contemplating creation might have had its place, but the future belongs to those who act. These past few months have been filled with daunting challenges. We know that. The American political system is doing much more than just fraying at its edges. It's beginning to look like it's unraveling. The executive is handicapped. The courts, more than suspect. The legislature has more important things to do than to govern. Violence in the streets is rising. Dissatisfaction is the norm. And leaders, go find them. They don't seem to exist. And while that is going on, democracies such as Ukraine and Israel are under violent attack both by nation states and by unfettered terrorist forces. One of the most fascinating things these days is to see how the hundreds of thousands of Israelis who had taken to the streets week after week for more than 9 months protesting against Israel's radical right-wing government's assault on democracy, suddenly turning themselves from being a protest group into being a volunteer social service agency, bringing food, clothing, and support to the survivors of the terror assault against Israel and to the families of the abducted. Unbelievable. Such actions were paralleled by the way that more than 200,000 young Israelis living, visiting, whatever, in the United States found a way to report to their commanders in Israel so that they could provide an unbending spine for Israel's efforts to turn back evil. Now, we might not be personally providing aid to those who are suffering in Israel, those we could. And in the face of our current domestic challenges, let's be fair, webinars are fine and protest gatherings very impressive, letters, petitions, helpful. But the first thing we have to do is get up off the deck of that ark and commit ourselves to be among those who understand that we are being called upon now to act. To act by shaking off our lethargy and become participants in the political process leading up to the 2024 presidential elections. To act by refusing to stay silent in the presence of rising anti-Semitism, rising anti-Zionism. To act by pushing back hard against those who embrace the uncontrolled proliferation of guns in our society, to act by not accepting widespread economic and educational inequality in our communities to be unchallenged norms. The flood is upon us. Its aftermath will be deeply destructive. We don't have great times ahead. It's time to get off of the deck of the ark and to give our resources, our strength, and our wisdom toward repairing all that is now being shattered. As God said, say, min hateva, get out of the ark. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.